Well, the plot thickens with Chris Christie. In fact, it's pretty much over at this point. New York Times with a devastating long article on how Chris Christie is a hands-on manager and how close he was to the people who made the decisions in the Fort Lee controversy where they shut down the George Washington Bridge, and in some of the other scandals where, of course, there was the issues of withholding Superstorm Sandy relief money in Hoboken. Mainly they concentrate on the Fort Lee issue in the New York Times article. And the two people that were responsible for that were Bridget Ann Kelly, who was fired, and then Bill Stepien. There's no way I'm saying that right. Anyway, that was his two-time campaign manager and deputy chief of staff, a guy who was incredibly close to him. I mean, look, he got him elected twice. He was his campaign manager. In fact, Bridget Ann Kelly wound up replacing him. And Bill Stepien, let's go with that, was also distanced from Chris Christie, so he's not working with him anymore, and Kelly was fired. So those are the two people who wound up under the bus. And remember that he tried to make Stepien run the state's Republican Party and put him as the chairman of the Republican, or help him Chris Christie in his role as the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. So these guys, especially Stepien, were as close to Chris Christie as possible. First, let me quote the New York Times on that. They talked to a senior Republican official who, of course, didn't want to get in trouble with Chris Christie or get involved in the investigation, so he said this anonymously. Said, quote, Bill Stepien didn't report to the chief of staff. He reported to the governor. There was no dotted line. There was a direct line. So when Chris Christie says, oh, Bill Stepien, what was he up to? Who's that guy? Oh, I don't know. No, all the people that the New York Times talked to who were in Chris Christie's administration, either before or currently in the administration, say direct line. There was nobody closer to Chris Christie. In fact, here's another veteran Republican consultant. Quote, if Stepp were to bark an order at somebody, the assumption would be, unless otherwise stated, that it was coming from the governor. There's no getting around that. So if Stepien and Kelly were giving orders to shut down bridges as political payback, everyone would have assumed that was coming directly from the governor. Oh boy. I mean, by the way, look, as we talk about this, who is naive enough to think that Chris Christie didn't know what his top henchmen were doing when they were doing political payback all throughout the state? And that goes to our second point. How hands-on was Chris Christie? Because look, if George W. Bush didn't know, you might actually understand, because he'd just say, like, he'd go into the commanders in the room before a war and be like, okay, is everybody ready? Okay, good. All right, now go do it. Like, he's not a hands-on guy. He doesn't want to know the details. Christie apparently was a hands-on guy and knew all the details. In fact, the New York Times explains, Mr. Christie himself tended to quote the smallest of details. Here's another quote. Everything had to be vetted by the governor's top lawyers in the counsel's office or by his chief of staff. Minor changes in bills or labor agreements, news releases from agencies and commissions. So everything was vetted by the governor. But you're telling me shutting down the George Washington Bridge, the busiest bridge in America, wasn't vetted by the governor? When they had massive traffic jams for 3 days in a row in Fort Lee, one of the major cities in New Jersey, that wasn't vetted by the governor? Come on, how naive are you if you believe that? And apparently, this whole idea of keeping lists, and they had broken down the different cities in New Jersey, and they had a top 100 that they considered swing districts, and they called them mini Ohio's and mini Floridas. The idea of breaking them down, knowing how to do favors for the people that run those cities, and then keep track of whether they endorse them or not, and then if they didn't endorse them, do political payback, that was called, by them, political moneyball. So you're telling me the governor, who's playing political moneyball, didn't know what payback they were going to do? Wasn't aware of this at all? That's like saying Billy Beane in baseball does moneyball, but he doesn't know the guy's on-base percentage. That's the whole point of moneyball. Yes, that's what they do. They keep track of those stats and important facts. In fact, the New York Times explains more clearly. This was, quote, officially known as intergovernmental affairs. The operation was a key element of the permanent campaign that allowed Mr. Christie to win twice in a largely Democratic state. I love that code word, intergovernmental affairs. In other words, if you don't endorse me, I'm going to intergovernmentally screw you and not give you bridges that you want, projects that you want, Sandy funding that you want. I'm going to close them down and I'm going to deny you. Okay. Now, finally, they say staff members in the governor's office, to give you the level of detail here, created tabbed and color-coded dossiers on the mayors of each town, who their friends and enemies were, the policies and projects that were dear to them. They were bound in notebooks for the governor to review in his SUV between events. They got color-coded files, and he's reviewing every one of them about what the mayors are doing in those top 100 towns. And in none of those were the giant bridge closings and the massive traffic jams in Fort Lee and why they had to do that and the details. And he didn't know that it was, in fact, as the emails indicated, political payback for not endorsing him? Come on, man. You got to be an extra level of naive to believe that. Did Chris Christie know? He definitely knew. Definitely. So this thing is pretty much over. Okay, OVAH. So Chris Christie, to come back from this and to get back involved in presidential politics, good luck to you, brother. But this is terrible news for them.